Welcome to Comics on Canes. What's going on? It's Michael. Yo, today we got a big show. We're going to talk about recruiting. We're going to talk about NIL. We're going to talk about the breaking news on Mark Matthews. That's right, Mark Matthews. He moved up his date till Friday, but I got to get him on right now. The man, the myth, the legend, Alex Donno from Locked on Canes. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Michael, I'm doing really well, man. I'm still buzzing from Saturday, the Dante Wright flip that I don't think anyone saw it coming, at least not the timing of it, because we knew Miami had been working on Dante Wright, the five-star cornerback who's been committed or had been committed to Georgia since June. So we knew Miami was working on that, but most of the intel was pointing to Oregon would be the team most likely to flip him, or maybe he'll stay at Georgia. So Miami wasn't getting, based on the reporting and the intel, very many positive vibes. And then on Saturday, based on what Dante's father said, they kind of decided that day, we're ready to do this. Miami's our favorite spot. We had the two best visits there. This is where we feel most comfortable. And then they let it fly early afternoon on Saturday. And that is, you think about, obviously Mario's pulled in some 5 stars over the years, but to get a cornerback that highly graded, like we don't usually get guys at that position. In fact, I think technically he's the highest graded corner Miami has ever pulled in recruiting. So that was a big boy recruiting over the weekend, Mike.
It was absolutely massive. It was absolutely massive. What I want to do is I want to start with like the latest wins we got and kind of get your take, because we haven't talked about the recruiting side. And I know you have Bluestein on your show and you have a bunch of different people and you got the intel from them. So let's start with Ty Keys. I want to start with Ty Keys that we got. It seemed like forever ago, but it's really only like 2 weeks. We got Ty Keys.
Yeah, I think 12 days ago or 13 days ago, it was like May 1st. So it's been about 2 weeks, Mike. You're right. And the first thing that stands out to me about Ty Keys is he's twitchy. Like he's big. He's over 6 foot tall. He's in the 190 range, which means he'll probably be 200-ish by the time he gets to the U. And, there's some good film on him, not only in like camp settings without pads on, where you can see the way he moves and the agility, but then you also see the way, he runs in high school. It's pretty sick what Ty Keys does to the competition there in Mississippi. He had one game last year where he had like 586 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns in a single game.
Yeah.
He rushed for over 3,200 yards as a junior last season, which is nuts. When I first saw his stats in high school and I looked at the 32, I think it was 3285. When I looked at that number, I'm like, oh, that's a good career stat
Yeah.
for 3 years. And then I'm like, wait, that's not the career. That's the junior season. He's over 5,000 yards in 3 seasons in high school. So I think Keys is someone who you can tell he wants to compete, because with what Miami has in the backfield now, and, Mark Fletcher is the only guy who's definitely going to be out of eligibility before 2027 when Keys gets here. So the room is probably still going to be stacked when he arrives at Miami. He's willing to compete, and he wants to be developed. And I think it was a great dub for Favian Upshaw, the new running backs coach. And we're looking at a couple new position coaches here who are getting wins like really early in their tenure. I mean, Upshaw, this is his first, primary recruit that he's landed. And I think Keys is he's a really physical back. And then the other thing that stands out about him is he's also really good at catching passes out of the backfield. So I think there's a lot of things he can do in Miami's offense.
I think the thing is about players that come to Miami now, which we couldn't say 5 years ago, to come to Miami, you have to want to compete now. There's no other way. You have to want to compete to come to Miami. And that's how the dynamic has actually changed from 5 years ago to now, because you're walking into a room that's absolutely loaded and you have to be a dog to show up to that.
Yeah. People assume that when you're winning and you're competing for national championships, that everything gets easier in recruiting. And in some ways it does, because of course you have proof of concept to show to players like, hey, we just had 9 guys drafted in the NFL draft. It was a
Development.
really good mix. Yeah, it was a really good mix of guys who were developed within your program and some guys who transferred in and raised their stock at Miami because, Keontae Scott left Miami a much better player than he arrived. Jacoby Thomas, same thing. So there was a lot of proof of concept. But then, as you're saying, Michael, there's also the challenge because different players are looking at different things, right? So you also have to sell players on the idea that, hey, we can't guarantee you anything in terms of playing time. That, hey, you've got, 3 or 4 other guys, or in the case of Ty Keys, maybe 5 or 6 other guys who play your position at a high level, you've got to come in and compete with. So that's the downside of it. I remember, like, the recruiting pitch, I'm sure, has changed a lot. When Mario Cristobal first arrived at Miami, he was selling them on a vision, players, and he was also probably giving them the idea that, hey, like, when Mario arrived, Miami had just one player drafted, in that NFL draft that April, and it was Jonathan Ford in the 7th round.
I know, that's crazy. That is so
right,
crazy.
So you were saying to players like, hey, here's our vision, and also like we need you really badly right now, and like you can't necessarily do that. You'll have to tell players, hey, like if you earn your job, great. Look at Malachi Toney, who just earned a starting job and balled out, right? Bryce Fitzgerald comes in as a true freshman, has 6 interceptions last year. That if you come out here and earn it, we're not going to be shy about playing true freshmen, but you have to go out there and you have to take a job away from a sophomore, junior, or a senior, and not everybody's down for that. But, the players that want to be Canes and compete, we're more than happy to have them.
Let's talk about Ezekiel real quick as well. Like, he was more expected to come to Miami, that we were the buzz on him. What can you tell me about him?
So he really fits the mold of the new school defensive tackle because, it used to always be the prototype was, hey, you want your defensive tackles to be built like nose tackles, like 310, 315. But Young-Beal, he's big. He's about 276 pounds. I saw he actually just on his social media this week put out like him standing on the scale. It was like 277, 278, something like that. And he runs a 4.7 at that size, which is pretty impressive. And it definitely shows on film. I think what stands out about Ezekiel, Zeke, he goes by is, how quickly he gets into the backfield and how quickly he can track guys down for tackles, that he moves more like a linebacker at the defensive tackle position, which is really big, very violent and disruptive. And the other thing about him being a new school defensive lineman is, and I know this is always at a premium with Corey Heatherman and his defensive line coaches, is he's got versatility that he can play multiple different spots. He can play in the interior or the exterior if needed, and he's a dangerous pass rusher from the interior. And I can also tell you, man, first of all, shout out to Zeke and his family because they did a tremendous job for their announcement ceremony.
Yes.
I was watching that thing live. They were doing it at his high school gym, but they had production. Like the lights went out at some point. He had these orange and green orbs that he lifted up. That was, I think, those are some of those UFO videos we're seeing. Right, now
I know.
That's
what I was
disclosed. Saying. Yeah, that's what we're seeing. He's holding up these UFO orbs out there, and then he had his granddad. Because his family, he comes from a line of Hokies. Both his father, who played in the NFL, offensive tackle Dwayne Brown, and his mother, I think, was a track athlete at Virginia Tech. And it was his granddad, I think, on his mother's side, who was at the ceremony, was wearing a Hokies T-shirt.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I'm like, wait, what are they? Are they gonna punk Miami here? But then the granddad takes off the Virginia Tech shirt. He's got a Miami shirt underneath. So it's a really cool video. And then also just listening to Zeke speak. And now I'm following him on all the social media channels right now. Really, really mature and well-spoken. I have a hard time believing some of these guys are high school kids.
I know.
And Michael, like you and me, we both talk for a living, but I know when I was 16, 17 years old, I was not putting coherent thoughts together the way that some of these recruits are coming out of high school. It's pretty phenomenal. And Zeke has become an ambassador. I think 2 of the guys that I really enjoy watching on social media are Young-Beal now and Israel Abrams, the quarterback who committed a couple months back. They're very active, like recruiting other guys on social, and I'm sure they're blowing up people's phones and stuff, which is really cool. But, yeah, Zeke, who's a 4-star defensive lineman with, maybe 5-star potential if they update these rankings a couple more times before National Signing Day. I think that's a really big get for Damian Lewis and Jason Taylor. I think he's going to be a really good one for them to coach up soon.
Now, let me ask you, I don't have the graphic for it. Let me ask you about Alou, because Mark Matthews, and we'll get to him in a second, moving up his date till Friday. Does that affect us any with Alou?
Oh, Alou actually kind of quietly on Tuesday morning, he committed to Notre Dame already.
See, I heard that.
Yeah.
So there's a chance we could lose out on both of these guys.
Yes, unfortunately, which is it's something that happens sometimes in big boy recruiting where, because like Miami and A&M a couple weeks ago were considered to be probably the leaders for Olu. And then when, Matthews was sort of, messing around with his timeline, trying to figure out, am I going to do this sooner? Am I going to do this later? I think Miami and Texas A&M both made, which is probably a sensible decision. It sucks if it doesn't work out for you, but a sensible decision to say, hey, we're going to focus on Matthews. And because Olu wanted to commit soon. So Miami and A&M were both in a situation where, like, this guy wants to end his process, Olu, like right now. But if we take him now, neither of us are getting Matthews. So they decided they were kind of forced to slow play Matthews. This is my assessment of the situation.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not speaking for Mario or anybody, but I think the decision was made that you were going to have to kind of slow play Olu, who didn't want to be slow played. And so, Notre Dame was able to take off with him when Miami and A&M both decided to wait for Matthews. So I think that's how it unfortunately affected us.
Now, do you think like when Miami's recruiting Olu, and then you talk about slow play, but do you feel like to slow play a player like Olu that they had a pretty good assumption he wasn't going to go there anyway? Or is it just, hey, we got to go all in for Matthews, and if we lose both, we just lose both?
It could have been either of those things. And I thought I was listening to it was either D Money or Peter on Kane's Insight made a really good point about Olu and Matthews, in that with Olu being more of a project than, like, because Matthews is a much more day one ready guy. Like, he could theoretically, compete to start right away at Miami, probably start right away at A&M, where Olu is someone who is more of a Samson Okunlola, is going to require a little bit more development coming out of high school. Now, this was, when Okunlola was recruited to Miami, this was like 4 years ago. And as I think it was D Money that pointed this out, that it was a different era for NIL back then, because it was kind of the wild, wild west, and guys didn't really have set market values or anything. Like, Miami was willing to make a big NIL investment in Okunlola, which is now working out, right? 3 years in and 4 years in, he's living up to that 5-star status. But essentially for the first couple of years, you were paying a guy a lot of NIL money, like, to develop, and you're not really doing that so much anymore. So, like, Olu is in this weird spot where he's good enough to be a 5-star offensive lineman, but he's not as polished as a Mark Matthews type.
Got you.
So I think you have to make a decision, like, how much NIL are we willing to invest in somebody who might take a couple of years of seasoning like Okunlola did? And so I thought that was a really sensible, really good point that they brought up on Kane's Insight, which really resonated with me. So I credit those guys for that. But, to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know for sure how good or bad Miami always felt about their chances. I will say with Olu, never did it feel like Miami was like a surefire front runner.
Yeah,
like it did.
100%.
There was a time when it felt like Miami's right up there, like they're in the top 2 or the top 3, but it was never. We weren't ever getting crystal balls with Olu. So, kind of moving off of Olu might have been an okay decision by the staff in the first place, because maybe they weren't getting indications that it's definitely going to be us, and so you might as well focus on Matthews.
So we got Matthews on the screen. He moved up his commitment date to May 15th. Now, I talked to a lot of people, and they said that's bad news. Now, can you tell us why that's bad news?
Yeah, so it looks like bad news because for the past 3-4 weeks, maybe 2.5 3 weeks, Texas A&M has been seen as the clear front runner.
Yes,
And so the thinking from Miami circles was the best chance that Miami has at Matthews is if he's a strong A&M lean right now and last week, because really we thought he was going to commit last week, and it was everyone's understanding, conventional wisdom, that if Mark Matthews had committed a week ago, it would have definitely been Texas A&M. That's where his mind is in College Station right now. So the thinking from Miami was time is your best ally, that if you can get this to extend his decision into June and you get him back on campus for an official visit. And I've seen people say this, like, what would an official visit have done? Because he's in Broward County. He's been on campus probably dozens of times. Like, what has he not seen that could sway him in the official visit? Like, the official visit it could have been important for Miami because you get to do things on OVs like the Prime 112 dinner, and there's different programs that they have that are different from the standard unofficial visit. So I think the official visit could have been a really nice opportunity for Miami, and they had one scheduled with Matthews for May 29th. So it felt as though if you can extend his decision beyond late May into June and you get him on campus for an official visit, you can take your best swing. So the feeling now is, and Matthews, by the way, I'm sure he's getting pulled in 1,000 different directions. Yeah. So, last week he told E.J. Holland from Rivals, your recruiting reporter, he told him, hey, I've decided to wait until after I take a couple of OVs to make a decision, which you thought good news for Miami. But then clearly he's doubled back on that, and he's now said, you know what, I just want to end this, and I want to announce on May 15th. So the thinking was if Miami was going to pull him away, it would have to be if he extended his decision into June. He's not doing that, and that's why a lot of us are worried. But I brought this up Tuesday on Locked On Canes, Michael. Again, I'm expecting Matthews to probably pick A&M, but in big boy recruiting, you can never say for sure, because I remember about a year ago, a few days before Jackson Cantwell announced, all the signs seemed to be pointing to Georgia.
Yep.
And then he ended up picking Miami. So you never say never. I don't want to go on record here waving the flag of surrender on your show. I am expecting it to be A&M, but I never count Mario Cristobal out.
I just think that, we were Cristobal as favorites, and he was going to commit to Miami without taking a official OV, we thought at one time. So, like you said, Donno, I don't take it either way because he's so familiar with the program. He's so familiar with being at the school. So I don't really think it's a negative. When I saw it moved up to Friday, I actually thought, okay, this could be good. This could be good because he already knows Miami. He doesn't, and if it's down to Miami and Texas A&M, I mean, he already knows both schools. And I don't think an OV, to me, would have changed Matthews' mind if he really wants to go to Texas A&M,
Yeah, I guess what concerned me is, people who cover recruiting on the Aggie side, they seem to have a lot more confidence than the people who cover recruiting on the Miami side.
Yeah.
So you take that for what it's worth. Again, sometimes we get this stuff wrong because you can't always know for sure. You can't always know for sure what a prospect is thinking. And I'll take this back to Dante Wright. Like there was this conventional wisdom that he liked Oregon more than Miami. And then after he committed to Miami, his father did some interviews. It was like, well, you know what? Miami was actually the ones we liked the most. Just people didn't know that.
Exactly.
They weren't volunteering that information. So, it's just, it's a weird business sometimes. And, I basically cover recruiting on like a surface level. I talk to some people, but I'm not like a big time, recruiting reporter. But even from where I sit kind of on the surface with this stuff, I see how complicated it can be and how you get a lot of mixed messages. So, there are some very good reporters on both sides. The Miami side doesn't seem that confident. The A&M side does. So I take that for what it is.
What's interesting, you mentioned Dante Wright. We got him on the screen right there. What's interesting out of his interview that stood out to me, he goes, he was just exhausted with the process and he wanted to get it over with. I think for these players more than ever, now there's like when you're recruited as a 5-star, it was always daunting and it was exhausting, but there was no money attached 10 years ago. So you could kind of take your time, go on this trip, and you only could go on like 2 or 3 trips, I think. So it was a whole different world. Now with money attached, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, you got all this money, you got all these schools calling you. I could see it being totally exhausting and you not wanting to take it up to December to decide. You just want to get it over with. Stop calling me.
Yeah, and then another part of it with the money is, in this ever-changing landscape of NIL, you can, to my understanding, you can like lock in your NIL deal whenever you commit. And so you also there's the financial game that comes into it, and it's not just about how much you're making. Like, I'm not saying that such and such player chose this school over Miami because they're paying them more, but there is now the component of like you have like financial incentives, like, hey, I can lock in my deal right now and then not have to worry about it for the rest of the process. I think that's one of those reasons why you're seeing players committing earlier and earlier, because it looks to me like there's more players than ever that are already verbally committed before official visit season starts. And then I think another part of the deal where you sign your NIL deal when you commit, a lot of times the team will tell you, hey, by the way, if you sign this deal, like you're shutting down your recruitment, you're not going to take any official visits. So official visit season, there's still going to be obviously a bunch of players that take OVs, but less than ever. I think a lot of these blue chippers are already locked into their deals. I think part of their deals are, hey, if you lock it in with us right now, you can't make any visits elsewhere this summer. You're shutting it down. You're done.
Do you think they actually get some of the money right away as an incentive to shut it down?
I'm not sure.
Or do they have to wait till they get to school?
I'm not sure. I'm sure. I mean, I would imagine that there are situations where they get something right away. I don't want to speak out of turn on that because also there's different laws in different states. Like,
yeah.
I think that might also depend on like physically where you live or where you commit to. So that could very well be a component. I'm not sure how all those nuts and bolts work. So I don't want to say something stupid if I'm dead wrong about it.
I got you. So right now, going into Miami, we're of course probably 3.5 months away from football season. How are you feeling about the overall team before I let you go?
Fantastic. I really think that this has the opportunity to be even better than last year, and I say that because I think Miami has a quarterback that fits perfectly into Shannon Dawson's offense, and I can't guarantee you that Darian Mensah is going to be better than Cam Ward, but I do strongly believe Darian Mensah will have a better defense to play complementary football with than Cam Ward had here 2 years ago, and that Mensah is going to have more weapons to throw the football to and hand the football off to than Ward had when he was here. I think the protection's going to be fine. I know Miami lost some important pieces on the offensive line to the NFL, but you're replacing these guys with 4 and 5 stars, including Jackson Cantwell, who looks generational, probably going to start at left tackle his first season. So I think the offense is going to be better than it's been literally in decades. And I think the defense, it may take a slight hit from last year because you're losing, in Bain and Mesidor, you're losing guys who are not only elite pass rushers, but elite run stoppers. So Miami may not be as good at stopping the run, but I think they can still rush the passer at a high level. I think you'll be fine with the old men at linebacker. Your 8th year, your 8th year and your 7th year linebackers, I think, will do a good job, and the secondary is going to be in really good shape this year. So, and you got an easier schedule than you've had the last 2 years. So, I think this is an opportunity to win the ACC for the first time, and you should be able to lock in a high playoff seed. So, I'm feeling great. The roster is deep. The team looks good.
I actually don't want to put you on the spot about this, but it almost feels like this season is the perfect storm, no pun intended, but it's almost national championship or bust. Like, if you're going to do it, this is the year because you got the quarterback, you got the defense, you got the offense, you got all the weapons you can have. It almost seems if you don't win it this year, who knows how long it'll be before you get back to that national championship game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I definitely think it's ACC championship or bust. To say natty or bust, it's a lot of. I mean, you're not wrong. It's just like there's some really good other teams nationally out there 100%. That you're going to have to contend with. But I mean, why not Miami, right? I mean, I would give Miami as good of a chance. Ohio State is number one for most everybody. Miami beat them last year, and their defense probably won't be as good as it was last season. Texas is ranked really highly, but I don't trust Arch as much as I would trust Darian Mensah. I know that may come off weird to people, but those who actually watch football, I think, understand why Arch is probably a little bit overhyped. So why not Miami? I think Miami's going to have every opportunity to be right there.
All right, Donno, tell everybody where they can find you, sir. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, Sean has a question.
Did you want to ask him if he wanted to join the crew?
Oh, yeah, I got to ask you I have two people in my crew. It's Gio Million, Finesse Mitchell. Throw it up there. I saw Mally hanging out with DJ Khaled.
Oh, no.
And I was like, that's bad luck because every game Khaled goes to, we lose. Indiana, and we lost to Louisville. So I created a fraternity called the KKA, Keep Khaled Away fraternity, and it's called You're the Worst. It's You're the Worst. Instead of We the Best, it's You're the Worst, Khaled. So would you like to be my third member of the KKA group?
Count me in. I don't want that dude and listen, all respect to Khaled. You give us bad vibes. Like, I don't want you anywhere near the U. Like, go hang out with the Marlins or something. Don't hang out with
Yes. Go to the Marlins game, man. Go be one of the 10 people at the Marlins games. I still can't believe they tore down the Orange Bowl for the Marlins. For the Marlins. It's sad. Okay, where can everybody find you, Alex?
I'm definitely in the anti-Khaled crew, the KKA. and you can find me, though, at Locked On Canes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We're talking Miami Hurricanes every single day on Locked On Canes. And you can follow me on social media at Alex Donno. Just my name. You'll find me there. And, Michael, it's always a pleasure being on.
It's amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Alex Donno is the man. Yeah. Like everybody in the world, I'm saying the world, knows Alex Donno. If they love the Miami Hurricanes, they love Alex Donno. And I
got recognized in Italy once. That was peak.
Look at that.
International.
Look at that. And in Korea, I'm going to Korea next week. In Japan, I'm meeting the guy in Japan.
Oh, I love that. Richard from Tokyo.
Yes, Richard from Tokyo. I'm going to meet Richard from Tokyo. And I'm going to bring my Miami jacket. We're going to throw up the U.
I love it.
In Tokyo. All right, Alex Donno, have a great one, okay, my friend?
Thanks, Michael. I'll see you.
All right, and everybody else, make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Can I tell you something? We're up to 70%.
Oh.
That's right, 70%. I didn't send you the graphic. So we're moving up.
Yes,
70% of the people that watch the show are actually subscribing, and we're going to keep growing. Have a great one. Thank you so much, and it's all about the yo. Yo. Did I say yo? It's all about the you and yo.